Allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to fully go there. And then remember that on the other side of that, because I think when we do allow ourselves to fully feel that sadness or fear or anxiety or anger, whatever it is, on the other side of that is space. And with that space, you feel the room to start moving back up the scale. And maybe you do want to start feeling hopeful again, or more positive, or maybe even just start focusing on different things. That's just such a beautiful space to be in. And I think that's why it's so important to fully feel your feels, so you can give yourself space on the other side to start feeling good again. Welcome to Alignment Adventures. This is a podcast where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling, aligning, and present life. I'm your host, Lindsay Tanner, and I am so grateful that you are here. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to Alignment Adventures. As always, I'm just deeply grateful and so excited that you're here today. I am going to be sharing something very, very personal. I mean, I feel like I'm always sharing my personal stories on here, but just something that I've been going through recently that honestly would feel unauthentic to share on the podcast. You know, I get all my inspiration from my topics, from my personal life, and to not share this thing that I've been going through this past year would just make it feel like everything I talk about on here is very unauthentic. That's just how I feel. And I know when it comes to these subjects, everyone feels differently. If you don't want to share these things, that is 1000% up to you. Like I mention all the time, you have to follow the nudges. You have to follow your own alignment. But I want you to come away from this episode with hopefully two things. One, if you're going through something that is really hard or sad or just a tough time, I never want you to feel alone. And I hope this episode really helps reinforce the fact that you are not alone when you're going through those things. And two, I want to gently remind you that it's okay to feel hopeful and feel aligned when you're going through those hard times. I personally felt like there were times where it felt unsafe to be hopeful or positive or to get into alignment or to move back up the emotional scale. And I want to remind you that it's not unsafe to do so. And hopefully this just generally inspires and uplifts you. There's going to be some heavy stuff that I'm talking about, and there's also going to be a lot of uplifting stuff. So just tune in along for the ride. I'm so grateful you're here. I am going to be talking about pregnancy loss. So if that is a trigger for you, one, I hope you can find comfort in this episode, but two, if you feel the need to leave, of course, leave the conversation. No shame, so much respect there if you need to leave the conversation. So let's talk about what's been going on. I've shared one instance of this already back in July. If you listened to 2 episodes ago where we were catching up, because I took 4 months off, which was interesting because I took that break right before my first pregnancy loss. I'm not going to go into too much details of that because I already talked about that. But right before I started coming back this time, I found out that I was pregnant again, actually on Halloween, which is ironic because if you know me, that is my absolute favorite holiday. October is my favorite month of the year. I just thrive in that month. So it felt like such a beautiful end to that month. And I don't regret finding out that day because it was, in that moment, such a beautiful way to end that month. But man, was it such a roller coaster. So again, since I'm mentioning pregnancy loss, like I'm just going to go ahead and share that I had a second pregnancy loss. So you're not like on the edge of your seat this whole time, like, is she pregnant or is she not? I am not pregnant right now. But I did find out that I was pregnant on Halloween. And this was such a roller coaster up and down. Like, am I pregnant? Am I not? And I kind of want to take you through that a little bit. One, because I feel like I'm an open book on here. And two, like it if you're in this situation, maybe this will make you feel less alone if you're in that period where you're just trying to figure out what the heck is going on with your body. So since I already had one loss this year, when I found out I was pregnant, first of all, the line was so freaking faint, like the faintest line I had ever seen. But I was a few days late. My cycle's been all over the place. I mean, just hormonally, I feel like my body definitely now is just trying to figure it out. So I was a few days late, so I thought. So I took a test. The line was super faint. So it's like, I think I'm pregnant. Like, there's really not false positives. But my midwife, which I've been loving having a midwife this time around, I had an OBGYN back in Phoenix, and my experience just wasn't what I wanted it to be. So this time I decided to get a midwife, and they have been fantastic. It's actually a group of midwives, and they have been so kind and compassionate, like always asking me how I am emotionally, like just go above and beyond. Like the things I haven't gotten in modern medicine, I feel like I've gotten from them. Anyway, she told me last time if I want to come in and get tests done, I can. Like they can measure, I think it's called HCG if I'm remembering correctly, and that should be doubling like every 24 or 48 hours. Obviously, you can tell I'm not a midwife myself, but something like that. It should be going up a certain amount every few days. So I went in, did a blood test. It was at a certain amount that like kind of made sense because it could be a wide range early in pregnancy. I went back in a few days later, and it had just gone up by half. So it definitely hadn't doubled. So the mind stories continue. Like this whole time, I'm really trying to lean into this mantra. I've had this mantra, I still have it, that I trust my body, I trust the universe. That is my truth. That has been my truth this entire time, the ups and the downs. That is my mantra, and that really helped me remain calm because, as you may know, if you've experienced this before, or even just trying to get pregnant, like there's so much waiting, there's so much unknown. So then I went back in again a few days later, and it had gone down. So at this point, it was pretty clear to me that I was having another loss. So the story doesn't end there. This was like a few weeks before our trip to New York. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw that we went to New York, which was honestly divinely timed, but we'll get to that. So I continue on the week, just assuming that I am going to have another loss. Well, TMI, last time the first sign was I had some bleeding, and no bleeding had happened yet. I didn't have any bleeding until, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So no bleeding that week after I got that third test where the HCG was going down. But like HCG going down is obviously not a good sign. That's a sign that it's not developing like it should. So anyways, I continue on with the week, just trying to go about my business, waiting for things to happen. And the mind stories are going strong. Like, what the heck is going on with my body? Like, I just wanted answers. I just wanted to know. So I ended up getting just like a home pregnancy test and taking it. And the line was so dark, like the darkest I've ever seen it on any test. Like, I felt like darker than when I had Arlo. So the roller coaster continues, and I'm like, okay, well, I haven't had any bleeding. Obviously, my HCG is going up because that's what it measures. Obviously, I wasn't getting like a quantitative number like I was with the blood tests. So I continue on. At this point, this is what I'm talking about, where it felt unsafe to be positive. But in my heart, I wanted to be hopeful. Obviously, it feels unsafe to be hopeful in those moments. And looking back in hindsight, I can see why my mind is trying to protect me and like not getting your hopes up just to be like crushed again. But still, looking back on it now, I have no regrets about spending that weekend. So that was that weekend before the next thing happened. Like just feeling hopeful and trying to feel as good as I could, and really leaning into those mantras of I trust my body, I trust the universe, I trust the timing of my life. I do not regret having those feelings, because this is how I saw it. And I remember explaining it to my friends and my family this way. Like, I'm waiting either way, right? So I can spend this time feeling anxious, unsure, like just questioning everything, like just felt low vibe to me. And if you've been in those spots, there's nothing wrong with you. But I knew I had a choice, and it just felt so much better to me to feel hopeful and positive and just try to distract myself. That's actually what I did the week before, is I distracted myself hardcore with RV travel shows. I love watching this family on YouTube called Keep Your Daydream, where I've just been binging all their old episodes, and they travel around in their RV. And it was such a beautiful distraction. Was it a little bit of emotional, like, avoidance? Maybe, but it was a good distraction. It was such a better alternative to me than just like thinking about this obsessively, because you don't know until you know. Like, there's just so much waiting involved. So I do not regret being positive and hopeful in those moments. Well, it turns out the next week I had some bleeding start, and that was the first sign that I had last time. So I felt like I went through it twice this last time of finding out that we had another loss, and that was hard. But again, like I said, I don't regret those moments of being hopeful, because I think that really helped me get through those weeks. I would have rather spent those weeks in that state of mind than just like driving myself crazy, overthinking everything and like just going over it again and again. And if you do that, again, there's nothing wrong with you, but just know you always have the choice of how you choose to see things. And I think that's such an important message with this, is of course it is so sad and hard and heavy. And I've felt so many moments of sadness. I obviously have had a lot of emotional release, lots of crying, lots of just time to really sit with myself and my feelings. And we're going to come back to that, because I think the first time I didn't totally like feel it all the way. And that's okay too. We get the chance, emotions come back up. But also, again, this is how I choose to see my life. There have been so many gifts that have come with this as well. And that's normally not what you hear when you think of pregnancy loss, at least especially 2 in 1 year. And this is never something I would have chosen, like consciously chosen for myself. Of course not. It's been very hard emotionally, mentally, physically, not even talking about all the physical things that happen. And with that, and not but, and with that, it has given me so many gifts to stop and just like take a pulse on what's going on with me, and just things that I need to tune back into, and things that it's helped me realize have been so, so beautiful. Okay, so let's go back to when I truly found out that I was having a loss, when the bleeding started. So that was a few days before we were supposed to leave for our trip to New York with my brother and sister-in-law. We took this exact same trip 3 years ago, and I was pregnant with Arlo and didn't know it. So it just felt like such a full circle moment to now be going back. And I thought I was going to be pregnant again. I was like, man, I cannot go to New York without being pregnant. And it turns out I was losing this pregnancy. So I guess technically I was still pregnant, but literally losing it in New York. So that was interesting, going through all the physical stuff in New York. Again, I hope you don't mind all this TMI. I'm not going to go to TMI, but just a little bit. At the same time, as difficult as that was, walking the streets of New York, like so much walking while I am bleeding so much, it was also such a beautiful gift, because it was the best distraction. And what was interesting about this trip specifically is the day that I probably had one of the most dramatic things physically happening. I like to debate how much to share on here. Let's just say, like, what has been happening has to come out of your body. It has to be released, right? So I had that last time too, but this time I think I was a little bit farther along, so there was definitely more. And there's just some things that you see that are definitely traumatic. Like, I'm not even going to try to downplay that. It's traumatic to see that leave your body. Anyway, so one of the days that I saw something that was traumatic was also one of the best days of my life. And I'm going to explain why. You're probably like, this girl is crazy. Why is she saying that was the best day of her life? I just find the polarity of life so interesting. And this even happened last time. We'll circle back to it when I had the loss in July. So it just so happened to turn out while we're in New York, I am not in New York often. This is my second time being to that city. And it just so happened that one of the number one celebrities that I would choose to meet was in the city at the same time, JC Chasez. He even was on Broadway the same night that we went to Broadway. We ended up seeing Wicked, which I do not regret seeing at all. It was really cool to see that on Broadway. But he was co-hosting, like randomly, another musical on Broadway, which I was like, oh, I would have loved to see that. But it just didn't, like, we already had our tickets to Wicked and we weren't going to sell those. So we ended up seeing that. But anyways, the next day he was doing a CD signing because he just came out with a soundtrack that he created. I'm probably saying this wrong. I have like brain fog to the max for many reasons. Okay, I'm going to try this again. JC Chasez from NSYNC. By the way, if you didn't know, he's from NSYNC. I've mentioned him many times on the podcast. He just released an album that's a concept album that he wrote with his writing partner. It's a musical that they're eventually going to release. That's the plan. And it's kind of a rewrite based off of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which he released it a day before my birthday. You guys know I love all things spooky. Like, talk about synchronicities there. He released a spooky album the day before my birthday. Just crazy. Anyways, he was doing a CD signing at the Barnes & Noble on 5th Avenue in New York the next day. And we didn't really have any concrete plans that day. We planned on being at 5th Avenue at some point. So it worked out where I decided to go with Steven. Steven was such a champ this day. Like, seriously, award goes to Steven. I've told him this many times, but he really helped me make this day a success. Anyways, we went to 5th Avenue, Barnes & Noble, and I didn't have tickets to the CD signing, or you had to get tickets beforehand. They were sold out. I don't know how I missed that. It's probably because I keep deleting Instagram and then re-downloading it for my own mental health. So I must have missed his post about the signing when I deleted it. Anyways, I showed up anyways. I didn't have a ticket, but I showed up anyways. And I was like, my goal is to just get eyeballs on JC. Like, I just want to see him. That would be such a beautiful gift of this trip with like everything that's happening. Universe, please just let me see him. So we go to Barnes & Noble. Of course, it's like roped off and there's like, what's the words I want to use? Like blankets, not blankets, drapes. There we go. Like hiding where he's signing the CDs. Literally right when we walk up, the security guy that was kind of guarding this area walks away. So I literally just walk up to this drape, peek in and see him. Like, I just walk right up and see him and hear his voice. And Steven got this on video. I'm going to share it in a YouTube video when I finally edit those clips. And it was just such a pure moment of adrenaline and joy and shock. Like, I can't believe I'm seeing, like, just imagine your number one celebrity that you would love to see. Imagine seeing them, especially when you're going through something really tough emotionally and physically. It just was such an incredible moment that I will never forget. And I still think about every single day since it's happened. I think about it all the time. It was such a beautiful gift. And I made eye contact with JC. Like, our eyes locked and his eyes got really big. He's probably like, who's this crazy girl peeking through the curtains? It's me. Or he's like, this is like a soulmate from another life. I do think our souls are intertwined. Like, we just have too many synchronicities to like totally blow that off. Anyways, it was such a special moment. Shout out to my husband for making that happen. He walked there with me. He recorded it. He hung out with me afterwards. Like, we hung out until the signing was over to see if I could get another glimpse of him. And I did get another glimpse of him. And again, it was the polarities of that day. One of my highest moments was one of my lowest moments. So let me take that back to when this happened the first time. Just, I love giving examples of synchronicity and flow and how the universe is always working to give you what you need. Okay. That was something I needed in that moment. Like, that was a morsel I needed to like honestly, you know what helped me remember was that like anything is possible. Like that felt so far-fetched for me to be in the same city as JC. Like if you would have told me that earlier in the year, I'd been like, that would be awesome. But like, what are the chances of that? The chances happened. The chances were probably very low, but they happened. And I saw him. We were in the same spot at the same time. And I saw him. We made eye contact. Anything is possible. That is what that moment taught me. I remember saying that to Stephen before I went to bed. I was like, anything is possible. Like this today was insane. Anything is possible. And I believe that to my core. So this actually happened last time that I had a loss. The next week after, my mom called me. She's like, hey, this is random, but John, who's my stepdad, her husband, randomly won tickets to Santana in St. Louis. Do you want to go? I almost bought tickets to that concert myself. And it was like the weekend after all this had gone down. Like I'd spent that week just like laying in bed. Obviously, all the physical things were happening. A lot of bleeding both times, just a lot of bleeding. If you've gone through it, you know. So that was kind of wrapping up. And I was like, oh, I would love to go, but like I'm kind of nervous. Now seeing what I did in New York with all the bleeding, I was like, yeah, Lindsay, you could have gone. But I was just kind of nervous to go to Santana, even though I almost got tickets myself. But here the universe was like, Lindsay, go see Santana. Go see someone that you would love to go see. And it was like the second row. Okay, maybe not the second row, but we were like the third or fourth row back, like super amazing seats that he just randomly won on XM radio for like calling in. Like I didn't even know they did that anymore. And the universe was just like, here you go. Here's like the little boost you need after going through something so hard. It's just, I find that so interesting that both times I have had just synchronicities with people that I would have loved to see in real life. I got to see Santana live, which I absolutely love his music. And I love that he played at Woodstock because that is just such a special thing to me that I saw someone that played at Woodstock live. If you've never seen his clip from Woodstock, go watch it. It's amazing. And then I saw JC, my number one celebrity that I would love to see the second time. Like that's 2 times for it to be like just a coincidence, right? Like those are pure synchronicities. All right, enough about JC talk. I could talk about my meeting with him like all day. Like I seriously think about it all the time. Go and check out his album if you love spooky, just interesting music, especially musical music. Just go check it out. It's called Playing with Fire. It's, oh my gosh, I've been listening to it nonstop. So good. It's definitely not Christmas music vibes, but it's really good. Another thing that has happened both times right afterwards, and I also think this is a synchronicity, even though this is more towards the negative side, but it's a very loud sign from my body saying slow down. The first time, the week after, so this was after Santana, I got the stomach flu and was out for a week. And then this time afterwards, you could probably hear it in my voice if you haven't noticed already, I got pneumonia. I didn't even know pneumonia was still a thing. I guess it's really a thing this year. It's really going around. So take precautions with that, definitely. I am very glad I got no one around me sick that I know of. But I freaking have pneumonia. I was like, what are the chances? So definitely my body telling me to slow down, because after New York, then it was Thanksgiving and we were just go, go, go. And I could tell my body was like, girl, you need to slow down. You need to rest. So this past week, thank goodness I was able to take a week off of babysitting Arlo's cousin. I'm still watching Arlo, but Steven was able to take one day off to watch him. So I've been really prioritizing just doing nothing. Today's Saturday, but really since last Saturday, I haven't done anything concerning the podcast, my YouTube channel. I've been reading my book, obviously watching Arlo and doing like house stuff that I have to do. But besides that, I've just been reading my book. I've renewed my membership with Gaia, which you've heard me talk about Gaia. I've been binging Gaia. And just like all the consciousness, spiritual woo-woo conversations on there have been so aligning. I've just been fueling my soul. So that let's go into more of the gifts that this experience has given me. Besides JC Chazé, that was a huge gift. Really, this has just encouraged me to slow down and do things that nourish my mind, body, and soul. My body has been through so much this year. I've been pregnant twice and not pregnant twice. Like my hormones are just like, what the heck is going on? You could see it on my face too. This is a blessing, I know, but most of my life I've had little to no acne ever. And on my face, you could see it like the week after my hormones were just like freaking out. And I can feel it internally too. It's just so the goal the rest of this year, December, we're taking a slow December over here. And I encourage you to do the same if you've got stuff going on. Like, it's okay to say no to things. It's okay to not go to things. You don't have to do all the holiday things for your family. Like, you can make it magical with the little moments. We are making it a slow December over here. And it's all about nourishing my mind, body, and soul. Another this nudge that I've been getting for a long time, and I've decided to really stick to it now, is I'm taking a little break from coffee. I freaking love coffee. I've never understood how parents don't drink coffee. But honestly, when I drink too much of it, I get anxious. And I notice sometimes I get more angry, which obviously is not something I want to be more of. So with just all the hormonal stuff going on, it was let's take a little break from coffee. I've been drinking a lot of tea. Oh, it's been so good. Especially we've been getting tea from our favorite YouTubers, Eamon and Beck. I had some of their mint lavender chamomile tea today. Oh my goodness, so calming. Such a calming tea. And my body's just thank you for giving me tea. So that's one thing I've been doing. I haven't been doing a lot of movement recently because I've been recovering from pneumonia. But as soon as I can take a full breath, I definitely want to get back to, just giving my body nourishing movement, lots of walks outside if that's doable. I know it's hard in this weather. Lots of yoga, lots of meditation, lots of journaling. I did some beautiful journaling this morning on things just coming up. Honestly, sometimes just getting it from your mind to paper. I feel like a lot of us want to skip over journaling, even though I talk about it so much on here. And I do too. I'm I just don't have time for it today, or I just don't feel like doing it. But if you've got a lot going on up here, getting it from here onto paper or onto your phone, even a note on your phone, that's where I journal, is so cathartic. And you can just see and make those connections. Oh, that's why I feel this way. Or oh, I do feel this way, right? I think that was a big thing too with me getting pneumonia, was even though at first I really was doing my best to feel my feelings and process it as much as I could before a trip to New York, things were so busy back to back to back. I don't think I finally stopped again to be oh my gosh, this happened to me. Sometimes this feels weird, but sometimes I almost feel a little detached from it. I can't believe this happened to me twice this year. Me? Are you sure? I can definitely feel that way. So I feel that was another moment where I was okay, Lindsay, it's okay not to be okay. And not that I was pretending to be okay, but we were just so busy, and with the holidays, you know how that goes. I was really just doing my best to make it through. As bad as that sounds, I was just doing my best to make it through. And that weekend, I physically broke down. I broke down. I felt awful. Got pneumonia, and I was okay, I gotta take a moment for myself. So I think that's a good reminder too, and that's always how I see sickness personally, is when we don't pay attention to those little nudges we're getting of you need to slow down, you need to rest, you need to acknowledge this thing that you're wanting to feel. I just remember being in the bathroom that day that I was starting to feel really bad. I was okay, I'm getting sick, and I just was I'm not okay. And that's okay. It's okay not to be okay. There's just so many things I want to say around this topic, and there's so many ways you can look at it. And I just hope you're getting the nourishment you need to. When you feel upset about this, let yourself go there. Feel upset, feel sad, feel angry. Go there. Feel it in your body. Get those tears out. It's okay. It's okay. Hopefully there's people around you that you feel you can lean on for that support. But even if it's just yourself, like be that person for yourself. Imagine like if this were happening to your best friend or someone that you love or a family member, how would you treat them? Can you treat yourself the same way with that same love and compassion and just like holding yourself? Like, it's cheesy as that sounds, like that's what you have to do in these situations. You have to hold yourself, just make space for however you're feeling. Because I feel like every single soul goes through these things differently. We're all going to experience it differently. And if you don't experience it exactly like me, again, there's my favorite saying, there's nothing wrong with you. Along with you create your reality, right? There's nothing wrong with you. Allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to fully go there. And then remember that on the other side of that, because I think when we do allow ourselves to fully feel that sadness or fear or anxiety or anger, whatever it is, on the other side of that is space. And with that space, you feel the room to start moving back up the scale. And maybe you do want to start feeling hopeful again or more positive, or maybe even just start focusing on different things. That's just such a beautiful space to be in. And I think that's why it's so important to fully feel your feels, so you can give yourself space on the other side to start feeling good again. And I think sometimes I could feel myself almost wanting to shame myself for not being more sad. Like, of course I was sad. Parts of me still are sad, but I still feel very hopeful and excited about the future. And in my heart, I know that there's a soul out there that I will be the mother to. Like, I feel like those things are determined before we even come here. Before I even came here, my soul agreed to be the mother to, I feel like, 2 children. Who knows? But I know there's another one, and they're going to show up when it's their time to show up. Like, that is such a miraculous process beyond our comprehension. Even with like all the science we know behind it, there's something there that like no one can explain. The fact that those 2 cells combine and it's able to grow into an embryo and then a fetus. I think I'm naming those in the right order. And then into a baby, like into a human, is just miraculous. Talk about magic. That is magic right there. I know when it's time that will happen. And I'm not going to lie, I feel like I keep hopping back and forth here between things. So hopefully you're still with me. The idea of being pregnant again is terrifying. It's terrifying. Like the fact that I could find out I'm pregnant again and then possibly go through this again. Like, talk about mind stories that come up with experiencing pregnancy loss, especially multiple pregnancy losses. There's so many mind stories that want to come up of fear and uncertainty. Like, is there something wrong with me? Should I be taking more supplements? Should I go get something checked out? Am I never going to have children again? What's going to happen? Blah, blah, blah. Here's the gift in those mind stories, okay? And this is how I choose to see it. This really reinforces something that I've been practicing for years now, determining between our mind stories and our intuition, or internal guidance, as I call it. And those are definitely mind stories. Like, they feel constrictive, they feel scary. Again, your mind is just trying to keep you safe. It doesn't want you to feel that disappointment again, right? But you don't have to listen to them. You don't have to keep those going on repeat. So that's such a beautiful gift of like, okay, noticing those are mind stories. You may have a ton. You may have so many, it feels overwhelming, but you're noticing them. And that's the gift. You're like, that's a mind story. That's not my truth. That doesn't feel right in my heart, that I'm never going to have another kid, or that there's something wrong with me. That doesn't feel right in my heart. Maybe you are getting a nudge to like go explore something. And if you feel that nudge, go explore. Like for me, I'm getting the nudge to cut out coffee and just like really be kind to myself and nourish myself. But maybe you're getting the nudge to go like talk to a friend that experienced this and see what helped them, or if they did something different, whatever it may be. Follow those nudges, and also see that as a gift. Once you acknowledge the mind stories, that you can tune back into your heart. where your internal guidance lives, your intuition lives, it's where mine lives. It's somewhere in your body, but usually in your heart or your gut. And see what it has to say about this subject. It may take some time to hear it because there's a lot of emotional weight that comes with these situations. These are very emotionally heavy situations. So it may take time of feeling all those emotions and just write out all those mind stories. Maybe write them all down, all the things you're thinking, and go burn it. Go burn it or go flush it down the toilet. That's a witchy side of me, especially burning it on a full moon, right? And then tune back into your heart. What does your heart have to say about this? What does your heart have to say about now? Because it doesn't know the future. No one knows the future. But what does it have to say about right now? And right now, my heart is like, slow down, nourish yourself. It's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. And it's safe to feel hopeful and aligned and positive. It is safe to feel that way. All right, I had to look at my notes to make sure I hit all the points that I wanted to, because I have been keeping notes in my phone of like, this is what I want to share in this episode, because this episode feels obviously very deeply personal and important to me, not only to me, but to those listening. And if I help just one person feel less alone or feel like they can be more hopeful about a situation that feels really emotionally heavy, then that is beyond worth it to me. So, of course, as always, I'd love to hear your feedback either in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or I believe you can comment on Spotify maybe. Yeah, I think you can comment on Spotify, or you can always just message me on Instagram. I love hearing your feedback that way. Just like what's resonating with you. If you've gone through something similar, let's connect. I would love nothing more than to connect with others going through this, because again, it can feel very isolating, because I think a lot of people choose not to talk about it, understandably, because it can be really hard to talk about. But I feel like the more people that do share it, you realize how incredibly common it is. It is insanely common for this to happen to people. Maybe not twice in a row, but at least like once. It's very, very common. Yeah, I can feel my mind coming up with, being transparent here, like twice in a row, like what's going on here, blah, blah, blah. But like in my heart, I know what is right for me in this moment. And I'm going to stay in my hopeful feeling. Like I'm going to feel those sad feelings when they come up. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to journal on it. And I'm going to continue tuning back into my internal guidance and just nourishing myself. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please share this episode with anyone that you think would enjoy it. If you know anyone that's going through this, please share it with them if you feel like they could benefit from it. If you are new here, please subscribe. That just helps the podcast so much. You can subscribe on any platform that you're listening to, but especially YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast. I think that's all of my things that I say at the end. I'm surprised my voice has made it through here. I only coughed one time, and I don't feel that out of breath. So my medicine must be kicking in, which I'm so, so grateful for. As always, I'm sending you all so much love, all the gratitude. I love you all so much. And of course, I will see you in the next episode of Alignment Adventures.